Welcome to Brave Talks. I'm Emily Nolan. Today on the show, we have Sara Agah Franti and we have Marti Nikko. Sara is an entrepreneur and is a self-compassion advocate who is also designing a course for that. And Marti Nikko is a beautiful singer-songwriter. You can find them all at their handle, @ with their name. I'll include their handles in the show notes. I'm really looking forward to sharing our conversation today. We talk about navigating motherhood and how we've found our career love through that navigation. Thank you so much for listening, and I'm really looking forward to sharing this conversation with you and hearing your thoughts. Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Good. Hi, Sara. Hi in Bali.
Yes. We're like 12 hours completely apart.
So wild. Scheduling this in the time zones, I was so off. I'm so glad Marti picked up on the timing. It would have been radically different. I just wanted to jump in and start talking about motherhood, and I wanted to share one story and ask Marti a question. So in my moments of postpartum, I would still venture to say like 21 months after having a baby, I'm still in this like new motherhood period, but definitely not as Bambi-legged. I would follow you, Marti, and follow you on Instagram @ Marti Nikko, and would chat with you about that radically honest, vulnerable space of just showing up for yourself and that self-care of just showing up and knowing that maybe you're not in a happy space right now or a healthy space or whatever the space is that doesn't feel good to you, but you show up with confidence and know that by showing up, you trust that it will arrive, whatever it is, or it will come to you. And so those moments, I really want you to talk me through what it was like for you to show up for yourself, whether you're in the studio, did you lock yourself in a closet? What was it like for you to show up for yourself postpartum? And are you still going through that?
Yes, all to the yes. I actually have two babies, and they were both surprise babies. My eldest is 15, and so we had a big break in between, and it was because we thought we would have more children, but I just never got pregnant again. And we knew for us that the process of like fertility treatments and really doing like deep examination on why that's happening with our bodies just wasn't going to be the path for us. We had one child, and we kind of felt blessed even to have had that opportunity. And if it's not meant to, we had more of it, but if it's not meant to be just in our natural rhythm of life, then it was going to be okay. It was a heartbreaking thing for me. I mean, I definitely felt a lot of heartbreak over that. And, but we carried on with life and raising our son, Levi. And he also, what children are easy children? But I could say in general, there were a lot of things that went along with caring for this new being in this earth. He's super sensitive and very internal. And we had people pointing things out to us that made us feel even a little bit more insecure about maybe the ways that we were going about raising him and that sort of thing. So we had to really dig deep and realize that a lot of what we were going through was the conditioning of society, really, and the pressures to conform and be and live a certain way. Once we started to identify that, we started to really open up the freedom, and that allowed our son to relax a bit, to finally be more comfortable with himself and to communicate more with us over the years and that sort of thing. So it wasn't like, we were just blissfully going about our days. This was over many years process of raising him, and that kind of desire to have a second kind of just softly, we just kind of hugged in and moved along as the trio that we were. And then I, surprise, got pregnant. And I'm getting old. So, I don't know that any of my being was ready for it at the time that it happened. I do feel chosen by her in that sense, in terms of all the things that were happening in that moment in my life. I was traveling, I was making music. There was a lot of beauty. We were feeling very good in our relationship, my relationship with Dres. And really beautiful things were happening at the moment. And then also some really tragic things, like I lost my stepmom to cancer. And then, 6 months later, I found out I was pregnant. And it's just, it was very like dynamic in that way, and very shocking. Actually, when I found out I was pregnant, they found a big fibroid that they thought was a tumor, could potentially not be a good situation. And so I became immediately high risk because that mass was in my uterus and in the wall of the uterus. So it wasn't like on the inside of the uterus where they could like take it out, or on the outside where they could cut it off. It's literally growing inside the muscle of the uterus. And I was very sick, and all of these things were happening. So when I went to go see my doctor, my woman doctor, we discovered that, and I was going, having ultrasounds and everything else. And then about a week later, I was like, I'm still feeling so sick. Is there anything you can do? Any medication you can give me? And she's like, you're still feeling sick? I was having, parts of the tumor were dying. And that was a very painful sensation. It felt like I was being gutted from deep inside. We were all very scared. We thought it could be cancer. I had an MRI to make sure that it didn't show the signs of cancer. They wanted to wait 4 months. And I was like, I have to wait 4 months in this pain and this sick. I started feeling nauseous and just like all of these things. And I was getting on the plane to go travel with Dres. We were getting ready to do a job, and I was just in excruciating pain. And I called her up, and I was just like, I feel so sick. It's not going away. It was like a few weeks after. It's not going away. When your doctor calls you at 8 o'clock at night when you're at home, so those aren't good signs, right? So we had already received those calls, and I was really emotional. We got on the plane. This has nothing to do with your question, but I'm just giving you a little backstory. We get on the plane, and I call my doctor, and she's like, could you be pregnant? And I was like, huh? Like, what? Could I be pregnant? You tell me. I just had an MRI, an ultrasound. Am I pregnant? Did you go back and look at the thing? So I pee on a stick, and I call her back, and I'm like, guess what the fuck? I'm pregnant. So it was a big shock. The point I tell that backstory is just to understand like where I was mentally and physically. I was living, I was out, I was living my dream love and singing and sharing and teaching yoga, and then this, and I know what this does already because I had done it. Mm-hmm. So there was a bit of fear, and I remember looking at Dres and saying, are we gonna be able to make it through this? He's like, we're good. We're in a different place. We're good. We're solid. And so I went through that pregnancy, and it was the most difficult pregnancy. It was not easy, and I was high risk now because of my uterus situation, and I was on a lot of bed rest, and my birth wasn't easy, and then the baby wasn't easy. Levi was a very easy baby in the sense that at least he slept when he slept with me. Layla is a different thing. She wakes and sleeps and wakes and needs a lot. And I wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for my life to just stop and be all about pregnancy, which takes a long time, and then birth, and then that first year postpartum, which basically you're just like zombie life. And then it continued on. The thing is, for me, it didn't stop. It continued, and that's what really brought me down. And I think I just pulled whatever bit that I had to just wake up each day. I had still a responsibility, and a responsibility to my other child too. So I still had to wake up. I had to give up. I don't think I had a choice, I guess is what I'm saying to answer your question. I just kept showing up and used the energy I had to show up. And was I deeply depressed? Yes. Did I feel like, what is going on? Yes. Did I feel out of sorts and not myself? Yes. I mean, it took me at least a year to walk without pain. That's how intense it was for me. But yeah, mothers have an incredible strength, I think. Part of it is the expectation, though, I will say, and some of the conditioning of the world and of our structures that have been built. And that weighs heavy on us, and we've been able to just like claw ourselves out each and every time. And I find that very common with many women, that there's this expectation and we kind of follow up to live up with that expectation until we realize that, hey, we can start to ask for help. Hey, it's okay to have someone care for your child when you need to, or take the break, or yeah, which was very different than my first child. I didn't do that. And I still don't do that as much, but we did move to live closer to my family, and my mom has helped me out a tremendous amount, my sisters, and yeah. So.
Do you think that the perceived role of motherhood on social media and the internet is making it harder for us as moms to actually be vulnerable and ask for help and receive what we want or need?
It's hard to say, because we all have that yearning to be with our children too. So there is a balance of that, and really, through all the various movements of liberation, I would say, and even in the movement of liberation for women, we've thought that that means we have to cancel out the other sides of us, the softer, sweeter, generous, that we can like, I have a tendency to weaponize. I always say that, like, you want to fight, and I pull out all my weapons, just like Durga, and I'm ready for the fight. You know what I mean? Because my ancestors have had to fight, because my moms, my grandmothers, everyone has had to fight for their peace. And so it's naturally kind of ingrained, when actually this might be a time where I am able to soften and kind of drop into some of those aspects of myself, the feminine side, the sweet side, the sexy side, and be living in that, and being a mother, and being still strong, and doing my life's work too at the same time. So, we have to start understanding that one thing doesn't have to cancel out the other, and there can be a balance of both. I mean, those are all the spiritual teachings anyway, are take the middle path. Right? And so you might be seeing an extreme on Instagram of all the motherly, and look at but I know motherhood, and I know a lot of mothers, and still haven't met that mother quite yet, to be honest. Like, when you meet them and you go into their house and you're like, yeah, look at you.
That's not your Instagram page.
Cool.
Like,
that's cool. Yeah.
No.
Exactly. Or the mother that is sharing all of that. We all want to share the good parts of ourselves. So, or the best parts of what we want people to see. So them sharing that, and then I have a conversation. They're like, girl, I'm depressed. I've been depressed. I'm depressed. And then it's like, okay. But that's the thing. We just need to keep having these real conversations in the public and with ourselves, and start to kind of take off all that stuff, decondition. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. It has truly transformed my experience and really empowered me to lean into the way that I feel. And you've validated my feelings by validating your own. So thank you. Sara, can you tell me a little bit about your experience? We are recently connected, and I'm really interested in what it's like for you, and living in Bali, away from, I assume, your family, and with your family, but
yeah. I mean, hearing Marti's story is literally like my palms are sweaty, my heart's like I can't breathe, because I identify so much with it. And when I got pregnant, it wasn't that we weren't expecting it. Taj was just conceived like a few months earlier than what was in the calendar. And Marti gets it. Like, when you tour and you travel for work, you have to literally like plan a pregnancy around the tour schedule. And I was in Bali at the time, and I was like so sick. I thought I had Bali belly. I thought I just had Bali belly, and I was like, you know, treating. I went to the doctor, and they're like, "Is there any chance you're pregnant?" I'm like, "No way!" Like, turns out I was. And at the time, I was like a workaholic. Like, I'd work 24 hours a day. My husband worked 24 hours a day, and everybody would be like, "So what are you gonna do when you have the kid?" They're like, "What are you gonna give up?"
Mm.
Because you can't do it all. And I didn't understand what they were talking about. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm going to just put the kid in the bouncer and I'll answer my emails and it's going to be fine. And they're like, and so I would almost become defensive when they would ask me those questions. And then Taj was born. I mean, the pregnancy was like the standard nauseous the first like trimester. Second trimester got better. I feel like it was fine and the birth was fine. But then I had Taj and like my anxiety was just like through the roof. You know, I remember I couldn't sleep. When you birth a baby, you feel like you can run a marathon. Like Taj was born and I was like, oh, I'm out of the hospital in like 6 hours. And then like 2 hours later, you're like, what the F just happened to me? And like the pain sets in and I couldn't recognize myself. The one thing I always wonder is like, how do these women look so good? And they take their like hospital photos. I actually postponed mine because I'm like, I don't recognize myself right now. But yeah, I just didn't prepare myself. Like I had no idea. And so everybody focused on the cute clothes and what the nursery is going to look like and all this. And like nobody sat me down and looked me in the eyes and was like, your body is going to go through intense trauma. Like you will require physical healing. You will bleed for 6 weeks. Mm-hmm. Your first bowel movement will be the most painful thing. Amy, it may be even worse than labor. Like nobody would talk to you about it. And so it was like, I was kind of in shock. And my mom actually flew down from Canada the day we came from the hospital. So Taj was 2 days old. And I remember taking him upstairs to take a nap and I just could not like sleep. Every sound he would make just would make my stomach flip. And she just knew. I think it's like the mother's instinct when they come in, they knock on the door and they open the door and I'm like, I think I just ruined my life. Like, and for a long time, I still have moments where I miss the days where I could do what I wanted, when I wanted, for as long as I wanted. And yeah, so, you know, I started taking meetings 2 weeks in, which I regret. Like, I wish I didn't do that because I didn't properly like take a maternity leave and I thought I could keep doing it. I remember breastfeeding Taj and answering emails and I just didn't give myself that space to heal. Mm-hmm. And I didn't feel like myself. I cried a lot and it felt really bad. And it's actually funny because I only have started feeling like myself maybe like 3 months ago. So we're quarantining in Bali. We have a hotel here and we were hosting a retreat when everything happened. And so we decided to just stay, and now they've closed the airport. So technically we're stuck in Bali, which there could be worse places to be stuck. But it was a beautiful blessing because I'm able to move my body every day. I'm able to have childcare that I can afford every day. And so now I can finally do a jumping jack and not feel like I'm gonna like pee my pants, you know? And it's really funny because now everybody around me, a lot of people in my life are now like announcing their second pregnancies or birthing their second children. And so instinctually I had this urge where I was like, okay, I'm ready. Like I'm ready to have another kid. And then literally like, I was just like, I can't do this because I don't want to lose the momentum of what I've found in myself. Like, I don't want to be nauseous and not be able to take all the meetings and do all the work that I'm doing every day. I don't want to gain weight from the pregnancy because I'm just starting to find my body again, you know? And these are really real things where I want to put my career first and not feel like I'm being held back because of the physical challenges that are going to come from pregnancy and having a baby. And it was actually really empowering to share this with my partner and be like, I want a kid, but I don't want a kid right now. Like I want a kid. I want to become pregnant in 6 months because I don't want to have to give these things up. Because there are periods like what Marti said, like there are times where you're not gonna be able to do it all. And it really gets under my skin when people go, but being a mother is the greatest job you can have. And I'm like, I fucking get that. Like, I understand that. And I also want to do this, 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 and this. And so whenever I hear that, it's like my biggest pet peeve. And I actually have a friend who conceived here in Bali, and her partner was saying that. And I'm like, you have to stop saying that, because what you're doing is you're not acknowledging the actual journey that we have to go through, and the identity shifts that we have to go through, you know, and the loss that we have to accept, and the loss that we have to mourn. So yeah, Taj is 21 months, and I feel like I finally feel like my powerful, complete self when he was 20 months old.
Yes.
And I'm not ready to lose that yet.
Yeah.
So.
I feel you. I feel you. Do you think that the cultural conditioning that Marti touched upon with Levi, her first son, and how she was like really struggling to like, I don't know if it was like get him into the right school or whatever, but that's my struggle, is like make sure Oliver goes to, you know, these schools, and make sure he's going to this class, and make sure I'm taking all of these classes, because I need to be like the perfect conscious parent. And then like up my yin yang about being a conscious parent. I'm like, it's all about embracing and accepting. But do you think that plays into, I'm asking this because I feel it does, but for me, do you think that that is why people are always like, are you going to have a second kid? Are you ready to have a kid now? Is this idea of like the culture pushing it upon you?
Well, I think the biggest issue that we deal with is that we're so confined in what motherhood, people think motherhood should look like, or what raising a child should look like. And so Marti, what I think people were maybe questioning was like traveling, maybe being on the road with your son, because I get that, like, well, what are you going to do when he has to go to school? And I'm like, well, maybe I'll homeschool. Maybe who knows? Like, I don't know what I'm going to do in 5 years, but I think we're stuck in this way, not just for motherhood, but just I had a really great conversation with someone couple weeks ago, how often as women, we're always like trying to get certifications and trainings because we feel like we need this behind our name to be legit or credible, or people will hear us or want to listen to us. We've lost the value that we put on just like passed on knowledge.
Yeah.
You know? And I grew up in a faith that actually, in the Baha'i faith, it says that if you have a son and a daughter and you can only afford to send one of your kids to school, you must send your daughter to school, because the mother is the educator of the home. And like, that's where I want to move to. Like, that's what I want to believe in again. That like we know instinctually, like we know it may not look like what our other girlfriend's doing or what our neighbor thinks we should do, but like we know what is best for our child. And I definitely have my ups and downs. I mean, I just got a notice saying that Taj got into a preschool that I just by accident put him on a wait list just to kind of support the school. And then and they're like, oh, guess what? Everyone's moving out of the Bay, so his name came up on the list and you can put him in school in September. And I was like, well, should I? And I actually called my mom and I was like, what do you think? And she was like, Sara, he's too young. Like, he's just turning 2. Like, just relax a little bit. So, the best piece of advice I got when Taj was really young, though, was actually from my mom, who said, because I was just so obsessed with like reading all the books and listening to all the podcasts, and I bought all the trainings, like how do you sleep train, how to baby led wean, how to do it, which all of them have been really amazing. But one day she was just like, Sara, your child is not a book. Your child is a human being and has their own personality, and stop comparing them to all of the, like your set of notes that you have, and just like relax into it. And having your mom, who we so many of us look up to, give me this permission to just like ease into it and relax into it. I think everybody was able to feel it in our household, which was great.
One of the things that bugs me the most about myself postpartum is when I have a group of women in my neighborhood, and we're like the stroller brigade. We all had babies the same time. And so 6 months postpartum, we all would text each other, like, we're going out, we're going walking. And we would all say, you know, when's the next kid? Oh, you know, like, are you going to have another kid? And you know what I'm talking about. And so we'd have these conversations. And at one point I was like, you guys, like, I can't believe I'm having this conversation, because we're all smart enough within ourselves to know what we need and what we want. And it bugs me so much that postpartum, I felt so insecure and so wobbly that I was looking externally for answers. And like you were saying, you know, read the book for sleep training, read, you know, take this baby-led weaning course or whatever it is. I did those courses, by the way, and they saved my life. But, you know, there's so many ancestral answers within us. And sometimes, most of the time, if we just stop and sit in our power and remember that power, that truth within us, and have the confidence that the answer is there and that we don't need to ask anymore. Like that changed my life. And so I think I got to this point of like, I'm so fed up with like my insecurity. And that's when this like snowball of, you know, postpartum power came to be for me. So I was just thinking
my insecurity was not having enough mom friends. Like I didn't have anyone to go on stroller walks with. And I felt really insecure going to like baby groups because I was like, I don't know if I'm going to have the right etiquette. My life is so unconventional. I'm going to make these friends and then I'm going to be leaving in 2 weeks and I'm not going to see them. And so I even got like, my midwife was like, do you have any friends? Because I came in and I was like crying in the appointment and she's like, do you have any friends who are also mothers? And I was like, no. And she's like, you should get this app Peanut and try to make friends on this app. And I was like, okay. And I like go on this app. Did I make a friend on the app? No. Like, you know, but so like that's where my insecurity was almost like the opposite, where I was living like a completely different place where like no one on my team had kids and like, or their kids were grown up, you know? And so I was like, I felt really alone. And I felt like, I was like, oh my God, I need someone for Taj to play with. Like, I need to find that mom who'll go on stroller walks with me. And it was like, it was really contrived, you know? And I had to chill out about that too. I don't know, Marti, if like, how that felt for you, if you had people in your world.
You know, I would say definitely with the second pregnancy, I felt super, super isolated. But I also did a huge move. We moved from LA to the Bay Area, and I did have family, but I didn't have my friends, my community. Like even in LA, I didn't have a lot of friends with babies in general. So, but I had friends who would either enjoy being with me and kids, or would tolerate it, and at least I would have, you know, interactions with adults, which was always nourishing for me. But taking that move, making that such a big move, and I did do it for the kids, or I did it for all of us. We needed more nature, we needed more space, and we just couldn't afford to keep doing that in LA. Not right now, not with what we were doing. And so we moved to the Bay Area to have more space, to have a little bit more nature, access to nature, but I didn't know anybody. And I think Layla was turning 1 that summer that we moved. And it did feel, you know, I can only hang out with my mom so many times. I love my mom, she's amazing. But I can only hang out with her so many times. She's still my mom, you know, like, and I didn't have anyone. So I don't know that I really tried so hard. It was more like I waded through that water, you know what I mean? As I began to slowly waken and start to integrate into this community, I started to meet people, and mostly through teaching at the local yoga studio that I work at, when we were having in-person classes, and becoming friends with some of the women there, a few that have children and a few that don't. But they all kind of embraced me. And, you know, it's such an odd thing. And I don't know if Sara feels this way, but, and not that I'm so famous, because I'm not saying I'm so famous, but we are known people and recognizable. I mean, we do have the instances where we get like an Instagram private message saying, hey, just saw you at the Whole Foods, you were in the kale section, but I didn't want to disturb you. And those kind of things are a little bit creepy, actually. You know, who knows what I was doing in the kill section or picking my nose or whatever, you know what I mean? And then I get the text that somebody was watching, you know? So it's, we are very leery, and we're very private because of that. We don't like, you know, somebody showed up at the yoga studio and said, hey, I think you live on my street. You know, thank God she was like a normal, regular person. And actually we've become friends. She's a yoga teacher too. And, but we're just very cautious. You know, we've had a few like little stalkery issues, not where we live now, but in the past, you know, and when Levi was young, I had been followed home before. So we're just very, there's aspects of that, of people seeing us as public people, and feeling like we need to also protect our private space, our sacred space, our home, and also for safety. You know, I also speak out on a lot of things, and not everybody agrees with what you speak out on. And so we're very cautious of that. And I think that layer, unfortunately for me, had kept me isolated, kept me kind of just, again, managing and kind of like wading in the waters for the right moment. So I wasn't like actively on, you know, seeking that, but that had more to do with that aspect of our lives and the way we live. If that's making any sense. So
Absolutely.
We kind of don't, yeah.
Tune in next week when Sara Agah Franti and Marti Nikko join me again to talk about the tools that we use to navigate the postpartum journey, and also how we can find our career love with some self-compassion exercises and mindfulness. See you next time. Thanks for listening.